We tell you that your solidarity is making difference, your support is making difference. We on the ground are following your protests, your rallies, your campaigns, your tweets, your Instagram videos. You are doing amazing work.
But what about the tens and hundreds of thousands of children who see this? Tens and hundreds of thousands of children who, like those Hungarian children, are waiting to be bombed.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to the Struggle Video News. We're going to start the program a little differently. We want to announce that we've moved into the 21st century and we now have an Instagram account. This is what the profile page looks like now. The picture on the left concerns a truly horrible report that when Israeli soldiers forced the evacuation of Al-Nasser Hospital in Gaza City on November 10th, 5 newborn babies remained hooked to the machines and were left to die. Aside from Palestinian sources, I've only seen an article about it in the Daily Mail, a British tabloid. Certainly it deserves a major investigation by the New York Times and Al Jazeera, because what happened appears to be truly hideous. People continue to protest for justice in Palestine wherever there's a crowd. This one took place at the Yale-Harvard game. Hundreds of students with banners and flags. It even made the New York Sports Channel. Notice it had over 1,000 likes. Something very positive and time-sensitive. A newly elected member of the City Council in Bridgeport, Connecticut, has decided to make her first official act to be an attempt to get that council to approve a ceasefire resolution for Gaza and Israel. Her name is Jasmarie Melendez. Supporters of the resolution are asked to have a big turnout on Monday, December 4th at 6 p.m. at the Bridgeport City Hall. Details on our website on the Changing page. I saw this headline in Haaretz and I had no idea what it meant. Then after reading the subheading and the follow-up article, I understood. Now you remember the news of the attack at the bus station where several Israeli civilians were killed. But what we didn't know is that at the same incident, Israeli soldiers killed an Israeli civilian who was unarmed and begging for his life. First off, let's say the attack at the bus station that Hamas praised was cruel and stupid. Whether it was in revenge for the 2 Palestinian kids killed in Jenin makes no difference. Just another cruel, stupid attack against civilians. But let's talk about the reaction of the Israeli soldiers. In the past, Palestinians and human rights activists would have claimed that Israeli soldiers shoot people who are surrendering or who have been wounded. Typically, they're denounced as liars. But consider what happened in this case. 2 Palestinians were shooting into a crowd, and an Israeli Jew named Yuval Kasselman pulled his gun out and shot at them. Now, this is a quote now from the Israeli paper Haaretz. Yuval Doron Kasselman, a 38-year-old from Mevaseret Zion, was the first to fire at the terrorists. One of the soldiers who got to the scene immediately afterward thought he was one of the attackers and shot him as he raised his hands. Videos posted on social media show Castleman throwing his gun to the ground, raising his hands, and taking off his jacket and pleading with soldiers not to shoot. He is then shot in the stomach. Security forces initially responding to the attack assumed he was a terrorist and gave him no assistance. He was initially listed as critically wounded and later pronounced dead. They wouldn't even give him medical assistance. So you can understand why Palestinians who surrender or who are wounded or even just suspects are so often gunned down. This criminal act is routine among Israeli soldiers. They even have a name for it. It's called the dead check, or confirmation of killing. We've been remiss in not talking about what's happening with Issa Amro, an outstanding activist from Hebron. He's constantly harassed or beaten by Israeli soldiers and was actually banned from his own home for meeting with a foreign journalist along with an Israeli activist named Yehuda Shaul. But still, Amro has a positive message for us.
From the House of Peace, the House of Nonviolence Resistance in Hebron, from the area which is restricted since 50 days and restrictions upon restrictions, we thank all the people who are showing solidarity, and they are going down to the streets and writing and doing their best to make the occupation and apartheid costly on the occupiers, who are telling the truth, who are acting according to the human being principles and morals and according to the international law, and supporting the Palestinian rights of freedom, the Palestinian rights of equality, the Palestinian rights of justice on the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. Thank you all. We, the Palestinians, want to be treated as a nation with full equal rights, freedom and justice. We tell you that your solidarity is making difference, your support is making difference. We on the ground are following your protests, your rallies, your campaigns, your tweets, your Instagram videos. You are doing amazing work. Really, 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 on this hard time, with all the people who are dead, all the civilians, the loss of the civilians, we really feel that you are making a huge difference. We promise you that we will not give up, we will not be displaced, we will stay strong and firm, as this olive tree is here since thousands of years, and see, it's talking about Palestinian identity of this land. We tell you that we will stay, remain strong with your solidarity, with your support, with your sympathy, with your morals and principles. The occupation will end, but we should be stronger with our solidarity. We should be united, and we should be optimistic and have the hope, have the dream that this place will be without occupation, without apartheid, without supremacy, without any kind of racism, either anti-Semitism or Islamophobia. We, the Palestinians, believe that all people on earth should be equal and they deserve full political and human rights. One day we all will live without any kind of racism, and this place will be okay hosting all of you, and you are welcome to visit us as soon as possible. Now nobody's allowed because I'm the only one who's allowed in this place, but I promise you that the occupation will end as soon as we all dream. Let's have a dream and work to make it happen. Thank you very much.
This is a Canadian Jewish woman who also has Israeli citizenship. Here she renounces it publicly because she's disgusted about what Israel has been doing in this war.
My name is Yula, and I am an artist and filmmaker in Toronto. I am also an Israeli citizen. I left Israel 23 years ago, and I've been living in Canada ever since. This is my Israeli passport. Here's my Israeli ID. And Army exemption card. I didn't serve in the army. Last week, I submitted an application to renounce my Israeli citizenship in the consulate here in Toronto. It wasn't a decision I made lightly. I've been thinking about it for a long time. In fact, from the moment I learned about the real history of the place where I grew up, the history that wasn't taught to us in schools or even talked about while I was living there, until last week at the consulate, it's been a really long process that took 2 decades. Yes, I did it in response to Israel's horrific assault on Gaza, but since this isn't the first time that Israel is bombing Gaza, why now? Why this moment? Because the amount of casualties has reached catastrophic proportions, and even though we're in a temporary ceasefire or pause or whatever you want to call it right now, it seems like it's not going to end anytime soon. And even Israeli officials are saying that after the pause, they intend to keep bombing for 2 more months at least.
We've been showing to you pieces of the Waterbury, Connecticut rally on November 11th. Here's more.
We'll be free! From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free!
Next up, the face that you have seen at every single demonstration for decades on end, our friend Stanley Heller.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, brother.
You guys and gals look amazing out there. So many signs, so many people. 300, 400, 500, maybe 1,000. I don't know. Terrific, terrific. I'm coming, representing, wearing a lot of hats. One is TV. Our little camera there, we've been doing our TV program, The Struggle Video News, talking about Palestine every week for 15 years. So when CNN is telling you the baloney, please watch our show, thestrugglevideo.org. Thestrugglevideo.org. Also coming to talk about Jewish Voice for Peace, which I'm a member of for 9 years. And then, I don't know if you can see this button, but the union brother reminded me that I've been a union member for 50 years. And we've got to, there are millions and millions of people we've got to organize and join with. For some awful reason, the unions have been supportive of apartheid Israel. But that's cracking, that's starting to change. And the postal workers president convinced his union to support Palestine. American Postal Union. Let's hear it for the American Postal Union. So when you see your postman or post lady, remind them of that fact. And speaking of that, you know, we hear the do-nothings or the ones who support Israel with your money. You know, Biden and Blumenthal and Murphy and Hayes. Don't forget on this dishonor roll to mention Lamont. Lamont was over there in Israel drumming up business for Israel. And also money, pension money, teacher money, and state employee money. They take out deductions, it goes to a pension fund, billions of dollars, between $70 and $100 million is going to either Israel bonds or other kinds of investments.
Shut it down!
Shut it down indeed. We're campaigning on that, but so far we have not found a member of the legislature to call on the legislature to stop these investments. And we did it with South Africa 30 years ago. We have to work on that now. And we got to say, unions, yes. Israel bonds, no. 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 I want to change the subject completely. Of all the vicious lies that the Israeli apartheid state uses, one that is especially revolting is the claim that the Palestinian hospitals are shields for Hamas and therefore legitimate targets. I think they learned this from Assad and Putin, who bombed hospitals in Syria and used the same lie as an excuse. And they noticed the world didn't do much about it. Anyway, Israel is bombing hospitals and is destroying them in another way, depriving them of fuel and thus shutting off their electricity. And their patients are slowly dying in intensive care, dying in crowded hospital rooms, dying in incubators. The Palestinian doctors and nurses and medical workers are heroes. Foreigners who come to help and who are amazing. And one is Dr. Mads Gilbert, or a Norwegian who has worked in Gaza hospitals during many of the wars, and when he heard about the latest war, rushed to Gaza to go into Gaza. He made a minute-long video from Al-Shifa yesterday, and we included it on our latest TV program. He looked right into the camera and addressed Joe Biden and world leaders. In the background, patients were screaming in pain. And he looked right at Joe Biden and he said, "Can you hear me? Can you hear the screams of innocent people being bombed in this hospital?" Hospitals that are the temples of humanity. Then he deliberately slowed down and he asked, "When are you going to stop this?" And he finished, "You're all complicit." I suggest we talk to our own medical workers and demonstrate in front of U.S. hospitals and demand stop bombing hospitals. Stop bombing hospitals.
Stop bombing hospitals! Stop bombing hospitals! Stop bombing hospitals! Stop bombing hospitals! Stop bombing hospitals!
One more paragraph. I'm also going to mention Jewish Voice for Peace, that has renounced the fool's gold of Zionism and has taken part in some very creative protests, from people going to Washington and filling the rotunda and chanting there until they were arrested, to filling Grand Central Station in New York City, to surrounding the Statue of Liberty. I don't think you saw it on CNN. But we Jews can reach more Jews. We stand now for thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands. It's a huge change just in the last couple of years. But we can reach more if we can explain that the movement for Palestine is not a drive to expel Jews, but a vast movement for equality. So I will end with two versions of the From the River to the Sea chant. Let me just say them once and then chant them with you. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And from the river to the sea, justice and equality. From the river to the sea.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
From the river to the sea.
Justice and equality.
Justice and equality.
Thank you.
What I want to do today is first
I want to thank everybody who participated, our native speakers and protesters, our African American. I say our African American because one of the Israeli representatives had a Freudian slip and said that one of the greatest dangers to Israel are the black youth. I don't think they want to know the history of, as it was mentioned here, Stokely Carmichael. I don't think they want to know the history of Malcolm X and many civil rights folks who know how to fight for civil rights and their rights. And they don't want that connection. They don't want to see that bond. And thus, she said that they're the greatest threat to Israel. What I want to do today is, I want everybody to see this. Can anybody see this?
Yes.
To my Jewish brothers and sisters, do you see this?
Oh, yes.
I think you know what this means. This is the number A25063. This is a number that was given to Anne Frank at Auschwitz. This is the number that was tattooed on her. In the 7th grade, it was required reading for me. In the 7th grade, I had an impression, an indelible impression. I can't get it out of my head when I read this book. Of the suffering of those who ended up at Auschwitz and the concentration camps and what was done to them. But nothing left a greater impression than what happened after they were sent to Auschwitz. The book does not cover that, but I want to acknowledge something here. I want to cover that here, and it'll only take me 2 minutes, so I want your attention. Jewish historians, they knew the importance of this. You won't get this in school. So listen carefully. They did a research and found eyewitnesses who knew Anne Frank and her sister that ended up at Auschwitz and then to the other camp where they died. I want you to hear the last words of Anne Frank. If she was here, she would have been with us.
Yeah,
Told the whole story, and she wouldn't have done it without shedding a tear, and I'll tell you why. One of the eyewitnesses who knew her at the camp, this is what she said. These are some of the last words of Anne Frank. So listen carefully. Each day, Anne Frank had to walk past the camp, past the gallows, where women's bodies were deliberately left hanging. One dismal afternoon, she saw a large group of newly arrived Hungarian children standing hand in hand in the rain, naked. Anne was crying when she marched past the Hungarian children who had been waiting in front of the gas chamber naked for half a day because it was not yet their turn, said Rosa. Anne touched me and said, these are the last words, just look at their eyes. Just look at their eyes. Just look at the eyes. And so today I want to honor her memory and honor never again. And I want to say, just look into their eyes. On my other arm, can you see these numbers? These numbers, 11,078, are the amount of Palestinians already died, of which 4,506 were children. They also were denied food and water. And then, instead of waiting in line to be gassed, they are waiting to be bombed. That's the reality of Palestine and Gaza. That's how I can honor that memory. And what we need to do is not just the 4,506, they're with Allah, they're with the Lord. They're inshallah in Jannah, in heaven. But what about the tens and hundreds of thousands of children who see this? Tens and hundreds of thousands of children who, like those Hungarian children, are waiting to be bombed and killed. And with that imagery, we need to go and tell our representatives, don't make it a political issue. This is a moral issue.
Tell it.
Don't make it political. It doesn't matter what side, just look into their eyes. Johanna Hayes, look into their eyes. Joe Biden, look into their eyes. Look into the eyes. The U.S. Congress and Senate, Blumenthal and Murphy, look into their eyes. Because it doesn't take a side. You're not taking a side when you say ceasefire now.
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
I am here to read a poem that is a few weeks old, that were inspired by the situation in Palestine and the children here. So please try to imagine the images as they're being read. Child of Gaza, what do you see? Child of West Bank, what do you see? Child of Palestine, what do you see? For what you see is different from me. Wake up, occupied child, to the sounds of bomb and blast. Quick, put on your shoes. By now you have learned how to evacuate fast. For breakfast, there is no food. Trucks parked outside of walls tall, not allowed to come into the open-air prison at all.
That's our program for today. The genocide is now continuing in its second stage. Get out there and protest. My name is Stanley Heller. You've been watching The Struggle Video News.